I hope you will not fall asleep. I wanted to make it really interactive, so you will have occasions to ask questions. And I have a topic, I have a red line, but the idea is really to connect with what you need actually to hear today. This is maybe related of what we have done the last few days, or maybe what you have experienced during this festival. Okay. I will start briefly with my story about the prana experience. I don't have the impression this is so important to hear the biography of other people. I would say this is much more important to know your own way. But sometimes you can see, oh, okay, you had the same experience at this time, and this is occasion, okay, I had the same reflection and the same thoughts regarding these obstacles. So regarding that, it's maybe helpful for you, but I will try to make it as short as possible. Okay, my background is more, I would say, on the left brain. It's I made studies of physics. I made a PhD in physics. It was related with renewable energies. I went to California 1 year to work on fuel cells. So it's electrical cars. It's really the inner part which is making the transformation. So we were speaking about free energy during the whole week. This is also part of this topic. Actually, the idea of these electrical cars is to take the oxygen from outside, from in front of the car, and use some tanks of hydrogen within the car to make again the water. And this is a chemical process which is really exothermic. So it's producing a lot of heat, a lot of energy. And you can really be behind the car, breathe the gas coming out, and it's not toxic at all because it's just water vapor. Mm. But the problem here, this is related with how to store the hydrogen. And this is a bit more tricky. Okay, storing the electricity is really hard nowadays, but the idea is really to store the energy in hydrogen form, so we can actually use, after the transformation, this power. Nowadays we have tanks, and these tanks having a lot of pressure. It could be like 350 bars, and if there is a small accident with the car, the whole car is blowing away. And we're using, therefore, other kind of stuff. This is called metal hydride. This is some kind of sponge which is attracting the hydrogen atoms within the metallic parts. I will not go too much technical because I know it's it's a bit hard. Okay. But the idea is really to create some kind of sponge regarding the storage of the hydrogen. And with our lab, we were trying to create new complex, it's called complex hydride, to actually store more better the hydrogen. So just to make a small story, the first part of my life, I've been working with the free energy on the physical aspect, on the material world. And then I move regarding the free energy, on the bioenergy, and also regarding mediumship. When I moved back to Switzerland, I went to a lab. It was related with neurophysics. So we are all physicists, but working with the brain, and we had huge scanners to see how the brain is working. And my specific topic was related with actually at a state of consciousness. So it was deep meditation and also lucid dreams. Lucid dreams is when we're waking up with our consciousness within a dream, without waking up physically. So it's a state really, really strange. Quite often this is happening, I would say accidentally, but if it's happening when you're waking up afterwards, you just realize something was really amazing. It's like a movie, but it's not a 4D movie, it's 10D movies. And you have really the impression this is even more real than what's happening here. And actually, this is also a skill that we can learn to access this kind of states where we're waking up of consciousness within the dreams. And actually, during this period of 3 years of PhD, when I was working on this outer state of consciousness, I also discovered within my dreams the presence of spirit helpers, spirit guides. And this is where my, I would say, energy path started. Just to resume, I've been working on different kind of sleep pattern. Right now it's more than 5 years that I'm sleeping. It's called Polyphasic Sleep. So it's coming from the Greek, poly, several, and sleep, okay? This is a bit like that. Between midnight and 3 a.m., there is the core night. So it makes 3 hours of sleep. And then at 6 a.m., 12 p.m., and 6 p.m., I'm having naps of 20 minutes. So I'm having 3 naps per day and a core night of 3 hours. If we make the sum, it's 1 hour with the naps and 3 hours during the night. So it makes 4 hours per 24-hour cycles. So the belief that we need 8 hours to be well, this is not really the case. I would say this is depending from one person to another one. Let's say, okay, the source of energy, this is the creator. If I used to meditate, maybe a meditation would be enough actually to feel rested afterwards. Some yogi, they don't sleep anymore. They just meditate during the night, 2-3 hours, and that's enough. So we can make the comparison with the computer. If we just plug in the computer, this is just to recharge the battery. If the computer is efficient, in just 10 minutes, we can restore the whole batteries. And it can last maybe 5-6 hours with the screen working. If it's an old computer, maybe after 2 hours, we need to charge again, and it will take much more time to charge. And regarding that, this is the same case. I would assume that some people, they are so connected with all this energy surrounding us that actually don't need to sleep anymore. Because if I'm just looking a bit my path regarding the sleep time, this is always decreasing. And quite often, this is not really a sleep that I'm experiencing anymore. It's just a time where my physical body is resting, but with my mind, I'm still traveling. So it's a different kind of sleep pattern which is appearing. And why I'm talking about this polyphasic sleep, it was actually my entrance, my open door to access to the lucid dreams. Because normally when we're sleeping, we're having cycles of 1 hour and a half. So during these 90 minutes, we'll go down in deep sleep and go up again in light sleep. And I would say the body doesn't care if it's Monday morning or if it's Saturday morning. So the idea is really to know how we are sleeping in order to make a habit. And it should be the same for Monday morning or Saturday morning. And what would be also important is to know how many cycles we have during the night. Because if we're waking up always at the same time, but we're always falling asleep at a different time, we will create a stress physically and also in the brain electrically, because you will wake up when you are in a deep sleep. It's like if you're taking a nap and it's too long, it's maybe 30 minutes or 40 minutes, you will have enough time to go in deep sleep, and you will have the need of maybe half an hour to go back to 100% your lucidity and to be fully present. So the idea is really to make naps short of 20 minutes, so we're still staying in the light sleep. And with the core night is to create a multiple of 1 hour and 30 minutes. This kind of polysleep is called every man 3, because there is 3 naps. So there is different kind of systems. If you just, on Wikipedia, for example, there is a nice article about that. You just type polyphasic sleep, you will have a lot of details. And I'm explaining this story about this kind of sleep. It's because it was allowing me to change a bit my physiology. So like I said before, we used to go in deep sleep. This is where the body is restoring the tissue. So this is really important. Some people, they don't have really the occasion to go really in deep sleep because there are too many stress, and actually the body is not restoring the same way. And the other really important part in the sleep, this is the light sleep. This is where there is all the emotional, I would say, information and mental information who are digested and integrated in our, I would say, auric field. And having this polyphasic sleep, the hypnogram is really the schematic actually of the sleep pattern has been a bit changed. So right now I'm doing really quick in deep sleep. I'm staying in deep sleep the time I need, then waking up. And I don't have these curves anymore. This is actually also related with digestive system, because we have 2 systems within our body. The first one is related with parasympathetic, and the other one is the sympathetic system. So one is when we are active, and the other one is when we are more passive. Passive means we are digesting, or we are just resting somewhere. And there is always cycles of 1 hour and a half. So during the day we're having more the sympathetic system, which is active, and every 1 hour and a half we're feeling just a bit more tired, a bit more restful. It's like it's harder to keep the concentration after a while. It's because we're just changing the cycle, and it's taking like 10-15 minutes to move again to this 1 hour and a half active phase. And during the night, this is the reverse. We're having the passive phase, and we're having just like 10 minutes, 15 minutes where we are a bit more active. And this is why during the night, during the light sleep, we're moving a lot. I just heard a few days ago someone was talking to me about an app that we can download and just putting the phone close to where we're sleeping. And this app is just observing the motion of the body. And regarding the motion of the body, we can assume if the person is in light sleep or not. Okay. And okay, so the hypnogram that I'm experiencing now is really deep sleep. And then there is, I would say, the light phase, where there is the paradoxical phase. This is where we're having the rapid eye movement. This is the dream period. This is happening actually during the naps, during the day. And this is why it was quite interesting, because I was falling asleep in 1 minute, having 20 minutes of dreams, and then waking up out of the dreams. So I had really a close proximity of the dreams, just the enter and the exit of it. And usually when we're looking on the internet and we're reading some serious book about lucid dreamings, they talk about some methods which is taking really several years to master, to be able really to know how is it working and to be able to do it at will. But regarding the polyphasic sleep, it took me a few months to get in touch with this skill. I'm also using the PNL, the Neuro-Linguistic Programmation. This is a link, a bridge between a kind of state, a body state, and a specific music. This is what I'm using. So I'm always having my earphone, and this is 20 minutes music, just 1 minute at the beginning and 1 minute at the end. And it's always the same. And just by listening to this music, it's helping me to go down into the dream state. Yeah. Okay, why the dream state is so important for our evolution? For me, this is really the Pandora's box, the Pandora's chest. Because when we are just sitting comfortably here, we can think about maybe a landscape. We can create in our mind some images. Then it will take a bit more time to create some sound, some smell, some whatsoever. But if we just compare it with the dream state, everything is happening at the same time. And even there is a scenario, and there is other people coming here and talking to us, and there is a lot of things happening all at the same time. So just to resume, okay, this is our, I would say, IQ during the lifetime, when we are awake. But when we are dreaming, this is jumping up, this is there. And due to this gap, to this difference, we can be much more objective about ourselves, and we can also learn much more efficiently. So I watched a movie a few years ago about some lucid dreamers who are using this kind of state to learn much more efficient. Let's assume the next week you have a driving license to pass. Okay, there is maybe some fears, maybe there is also some theory to just repeat, and maybe also to practice the exercise. Okay, if you're lucid dreamers, you can really program yourself. Okay, this night I will train my practice and repeat all what I have already learned. Because also within the dream state, you can access to your memory much more deeper that you're used to have during the awakened state. So the memory is there, and the connection between the thoughts and the body is much more stronger. So if you're able to manage to move around the wheel and the feet and everything, this connection will be much more stronger. So I would say if you're working 1 hour during the dream state, it's maybe 10 hours in the lifetime. Just a short comparison like that. Okay, and you can also work directly with your subconscious mind. For example, if you're afraid to pass your driving license, you can just try to visualize your fear. Maybe it's a snake coming in front of the car, or maybe just the car is starting to shake in front of you, or just the color of the car is not appealing. And then you can just work within the dream. Okay, there is this dreamscape, but you're not just a witness, you can also interact with it. And that's why it's so magical into this state. So I hope I could solve my car pitch to say that the dreamscape is really amazing. If you can access to your dreams, you can really access to who you are on the subconscious level, but also with your higher self. This is the Pandora's box. Okay, and this is actually through this exploration of dreams that I met my spirit guides. And this is why, after a while, I moved to be a professional medium, professional shaman. And then I made a healing also, but also moved with my physical body to this pranic state. This is really regarding the teaching I received during the dreams. When we are used to go into the dream states and master the state, we can also do it when we are awake, just by closing our eyes, shifting our awareness, and making a travel and accessing the information we need. Actually, I will take back the metaphor that I gave you a few days ago when we were doing the bioenergy workshop. This is regarding the iceberg, okay? There is the sea level, okay, the horizontal plane, and there is the iceberg. The visible part of the iceberg is the 10%. This is the conscious mind. And the invisible part, this is the 90%. This is what is below the water. And all this 90% is what we need actually to discover about ourselves. Okay, during our journey, we will go deeper and deeper into what we are and be more and more conscious about all these different emotions, our limited belief, programming. And this will allow us to move with our consciousness deeper, take this information, bring it back to the surface, and change it until we are completely aligned with our awareness, with our consciousness. And regarding the dreams, we're actually accessing a small layer just below the water, which is called the subconscious mind. So it's still a part of the unconscious mind, but we can access to this information when we're shifting our awareness. This is why we call the altered state of consciousness. And from this layer, we can access information within ourselves. So, for example, what's happened in a different lifetime, or when I was really a young child, or something like that. Or it could be also related with other informations, with what is happening around us, and also some communication with other people, other spirits. Actually, the medium and the shamans, they're accessing easily to this layer. But what we have done the last 2 days, it was training about the travel, the shamanic journey. And actually, if you master the shamanic journey, then you don't need to have an induction of 10 minutes, having the drummings, or take ayahuasca, or having holotropic breath work. You can just shift your awareness and move into this state to access to this information. And for me, that was this open door, the lucid dreams, and then the access with the spirit guides to actually help to discover the who I am. This is always my path is always to try to know better the who I am. Actually, more I'm moving forward, less I have the impression I know. It's like the topic is always opening up, and we're not able to put any conclusion anywhere, because we just realize, okay, I'm not limiting by that, and not that, and not that, and it's always growing. So actually, if you're not able to define what is the border of who we are, actually we can't suggest with the time more and more precisely where is our center. And if we can't find it, then somehow we can find some harmony, some balance in our life. And this is what I wish you, is to be able to find this attunement, this inner attunement, to find this balance within. I will speak just briefly about the process that I'm offering, that I would like to teach. This is a pranic process, but this pranic process is a bit maybe particular compared to other process, because we're taking really the shamanic path, because we will start to work on the journeys and directly work with them, and they will teach you exactly what you need to do at this moment. Because when we're having a method, it could be applied to 80% of the people. Okay, that could be good for this 80%, but maybe 20% they will have some resistance regarding this method. And actually it will be not specific to the person using this method. And the idea is really to access to the hints that we need, to the healing that we need right now. Because we will need maybe to have a lot of different experiences before we just realize, oh my gosh, this missing step is there in front of me. I have to do that in order to, I don't know, deal with an emotion or change my diet in this way or something like that. But if you have always, I would say, doctors, medical doctors, amazing wise men around us, and they know exactly how we're working. They can just pinpoint, okay, the next step for you is this one. So this is the dreams, the lucid dreams, and the access to the spiritual world. Actually, more we are in connection with our spirits, more is it easier to connect with other spirits. It could be from living person, but it could be also from deceased person. The last 5 years, I'm a professional medium, and the people are used to come to me to talk with deceased people. It could be a grandfather, but it could be also a daughter who left really early. And there is a lot of healing, not only for the living person, but also for the person on the other side. This is also interesting to understand that, because it's not because we moved on the other way that there is no work anymore to do. Actually, the soul is always progressing. It could be incarnated or not incarnated. It doesn't matter. There is always this process. And just by creating this bridge, we can make, I would say, the circulation of information much more easier. Regarding, for example, our soul mission, because when we decided to take the parachute and come here on Earth, we had really some kind of schedule. We wanted to express something. Actually, I'm used to say that God gave us a compass. If we are really doing what we are supposed to do, what our soul wanted to express, we will be feeling happiness and joy. And if we're just having the impression that somehow the whole world is resisting to us and it's hard to move forward, then we are not really directed by the compass. So we need to step back, just listen back to our heart and change the direction. Okay. Are you interested about the process? I can give a bit more details. If not, I can move to questions. Up to you. This is your session. This is not my session.
No, but it's not a question anyway. Well, it's not a question really, because I think that I didn't see any hand raised. I just suggest that you go with your own feeling. If you feel you need to talk a bit more about your process, go ahead. And if you feel some other thing, let's go with what you feel.
Okay, sounds good. And when I see a hand rising, then I will switch to the questions. Okay. During this whole week, we talk about how to gather the energy. Okay, I would say this is the first part of the talk. The other part of the talk is energy management, because I just explained a bit this morning. The people, they will work hard. Okay, they will do a lot of breath work, a lot of Tai Chi, a lot of visualization. This is maybe helping for the transition, but we need to look for a state of being and not a state of doing. Okay, so all the people here, they are not, I would say, a lot identified with the matter to have something. They are not the doer or the being, the beer. Okay, not the beer, but the people who is working on the state of being. Yeah. And for the pranic, this is the same. Okay, we can learn to be differently by practicing energy work to increase actually the intake of energy. But at the end of the day, you need to be really relaxed in the present moments, and without having the impression there is a boundaries between you and the whole universe. And when you are be able to feel it, not just mentally create this paradigm, but feel it in your body energetically, then you will start to gather a lot of prana. So this is the first step, to be in the pranic state. And the second state is actually to avoid losing too much energy. We were just talking about sleep. Actually, you have maybe the proclamation that more we are sleeping, better we are in the morning, more we are fit in the morning. Actually, if you just observe in your life, maybe on Sunday morning where you were just staying a bit more, like 11 a.m., something like that, you could just realize that it was really hard to wake up the body. So actually there is really an optimum time of sleeping. And maybe sometimes it's a bit shorter than the others. The idea is again to listen to your body. If we're just observing how a baby is sleeping, it's really a small naps or 1 hour and a half, and again a small naps, something like that. He doesn't care about the 8 hours paradigm that we need to sleep. And it's the same also if somebody, they just move out of the society and they're just following what their body needs to express at this moment, they will go back to this kind of sleeping pattern. And if we make the sum at the end of the day, they will have less, much less than 8 hours. Okay. But in our society, we have changed our physiology, or we had the illusion that we somehow can change our body because we wanted to be efficient with the industrial world. And for the machine, there is really cycles of 8 hours. So we need to go at a job, working 8 hours, and then sleep 8 hours to be efficient for the next day, and so on. But this is against our physiology. Okay, so the energy management starts to eat properly, sleep properly, but also think properly. And this is maybe the most subtle part, because, okay, there is a big part of what we're emanating, this is conscious part, but there is also a big part which is unconscious part. If you're just taking back the iceberg, then there is maybe 90% of what we're emanating, which is, I would say, not aligned with the coding of the source. And this will create a friction in the universe. It could be related with an event, it could be an accident, it could be an interaction with a person, it could be a feeling that we don't want to feel, or something bad happening in the body. Whatsoever, when there is something which is not aligned with the source, it will be always some teachings back from the universe. And normally the universe is always trying to speak to us really gently, really softly. But if you're not able to listen to the first signal, then the universe will increase the volume. Actually, it's not the will of the universe, because the universe is really like a mirror. So if you are still emanating the same thoughts, the package or the density of this information will be bigger and bigger. And the response from the universe will be also bigger. So, for example, if you're looking back in our life, maybe we had always the same kind of patterns. Let's assume I had in my life the abandoned soul wound. So we're really speaking about soul wound. So this is something which is avoiding us to be whole in our light. If I have this programming, that having the impression that the universe is always abandoning me, it was maybe starting when I was a young child. Other colleagues in my school, they were somehow going in holidays or changing village, just moving somewhere else. And I had always maybe the impression that they were abandoning me. And then maybe a bit later, with the colleague, the work colleagues, and then the family, and then in the couple, and so on and so on. So every time it's starting to be more harder to cope with that, because it costs a lot of energy to avoid seeing the message of the universe. And actually, if we just realize how many energy we need to spend in order to solve the problem, that would be not so big compared to the resistance we're applying to avoid seeing the message signal from the universe. And I would say also that if we're able to change ourselves, always have some suppressed anger in my emotional body, it will cost me a lot of energy. If I have some trauma on the physical body, it will also maybe create a leakage. Let's assume when I was a younger boy, I had maybe an accident with my bike, and I had a broken knee. Okay, maybe right now my body is already fixed, but there is still maybe the etheric body which is having a hole at this place. So it's also important to be complete in every layers, that there is no leakage. Okay. Yes, go for it. Yes.
So what exactly who or what is communicating?
Actually, it's yourself communicating with yourself, because you are the whole universe. Yes, the spirits, but I would say beyond the experience of separation, we are all one. And really, the mission of the universe is to help us to grow in our lights. It's really, we are all, I would say, gods en devenir. We are all starting to be more and more close to our divine parts. But the universe is always responding with some specific laws. There is the laws of attraction. Okay, if you're emanating something, you will attract what is related with what you're emanating. For example, if you have a lot of anger within yourself, then you will find a lot of angry people on your path. And regarding that, this is really like a mirror effect. If you're smiling at the mirror, then the universe will smile back to you. And to be able to, I would say, to learn with all these teachings from the life, we need somehow to get rid of this separation experience. Because if there is always this separation, I will be somehow a victim. Okay, something's happening to me. And if I'm not 100% responsible, I will not open the door to change it. But if I'm able to change it, I will never to experience it again, because I have understood this teaching. And a bit more regarding that, about how the life is, I would say, teaching us the who we are. There is 2 points, because okay, the teachings, it's at every moment in all different directions, but sometimes we are not at home. So even if the postman is coming here and bringing some letters, we will not watch the mailbox because we're not at home. I mean by that, a lot of people, they're just lost in their mind. It could be in the past, it could be in the future. They could be just looking other people around. For example, in the couple, a lot of people, they're not living their couple, they're living through the other person. And this is creating some, I would say, they're avoiding some teachings from the universe. So the first step is to be at home. See, it's always to have a part of your consciousness focused in your physical body. It sounds a bit strange, it sounds a bit hard to do, but whatever you're doing, you should have a part of your consciousness at the present moment with your physical body. And every time there is some teaching and I'm forcing not to see these teachings, I will reinforce this ego, this separation experience. So the first step to make a good energy management is to have the courage to live the who you are and accepting whatever is happening. Okay, today I was maybe impatient. Okay, yesterday I was, I don't know, feeling some anger, but still move with that. Because if you're doing and experiencing that today, it doesn't mean that tomorrow you can't do better. And just by allowing the who you are, you will nourish exactly your axis, your light, and you will not feed anymore these illusions. Regarding a relationship, quite often in the couples, when they're starting to meet each other, we quite often have the impression I'm not good enough. I'm not be able to be loved the way I am. And I have to change something in myself. And what's happening? I'm here with my light axis, and then I created a double. Okay, this is the mask, this is the illusion. And then the other person in front of me is doing the same. And there is an interaction between my mask and the mask of the other person. For example, at work, a lot of people, they will change the way they will react, the way they will answer the phone, the way they will just choose the words when they're speaking. And when they're at home, they have another mask, which is acting. And all this illusion, or all this creation, this is just because we have the impression we are not able to be just myself in the present moment. Just for example, if you need love from your father, you will implicitly ask your father what I should look like to be the ideal version of the son, okay, or the daughter. And if you realize, okay, my father is used to work a lot and he's just judging a person by how many hours the person is working, then maybe during your whole life you will have to work 10 hours per day because you still want to receive the love of your father. So actually he's creating his own model of the reality, the ideal version of the daughter. I see that the translator just left. It was too quick. Oh, so sorry. So if I'm just summarizing, you need someone to sacrifice your light, sacrifice who you are on the spiritual level in order to be able to communicate with the society. Okay, I will just not to dive too much into this topic, but the idea is with the time, you will just realize that somehow you don't want to make any sacrifice of who you are. Okay, for example, with the work, you were talking about the need to feed yourself. Okay, we're just in a place where we're starting to realize this was just a limited belief. And it's the same with the work. A lot of people, they just need to do anymore. They are just in act of being. Okay, regarding this paradigm and the work, a lot of people, they say, I need to spend 8 hours to suffer 8 hours to receive some money. I would move towards a different story. This is called the job hobby. And if you do the activity that you like, actually this is not a work anymore. And by doing your passion, you will receive money. So regarding your answer, you're not taking distance from your light and you're still earning money, still doing exactly what you want.
But how much freedom do you have in this society?
How much?
In statistics, between 70 and
Sorry. You have an interesting question.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. According to statistics,
Yes.
between 70 and 80% of people do jobs they don't really identify with. So it is a social problem, you know. It's not a personal problem, I would say. It is a social problem. So we have to change something in the structure of society, in the structure of the system. You know, I don't think...
Okay, there is two topics here. I will just take the words of Gandhi. Gandhi said, need to be the change that you want to see around you. I would say if you're able to be the change and to be happy with your life, then somehow you will show the example for the people around you. And actually, you will don't care about what the other people are choosing because that's their path. You say, no, this is my answer. I cannot give you another answer that's my own truth. But this is a different story if it's matching your own perception of the world, because actually we all have a different perception of the world, okay?
But how much freedom do you have? For example, if parents don't want that their children are or if children they don't want to school.
Near to...
If children they don't want to school because they are not interested in learning things, or maybe they are...
Okay, I'll just move to the conclusion firstly. So we don't have any choice, we are poor victims.
Sometimes, yeah.
Okay, that's it. That's your perception of the world. Okay, we just move with another paradigm. Oh, sorry. Mm-hmm. You want to use the statistics somehow to justify your position that you don't have any choice. Actually, if you look really deep enough, you have always a choice. But at a certain point, we are just, I would say, experiencing what's our own background. It could be related with the education, with the parents, or different past life. All this information, they're pushing us to react in a certain way. But if we're able to go back to our light, there is no limit anymore. I didn't say it's easy. I didn't say it's just one day that we can do that. But more and more we're moving forward, more and more we're opening the choices. And this is where it's happening. You were talking about the vaccine, about the children. This is a hot topic. And I would say in some specific places, it's important to say no. And even if there is a no with the school, to go even deeper with the law or something else, and maybe to move to a different place where there is not this law for forcing that. But in every different cases, we need also to understand that if there is a friction with the universe, there is something within ourselves we need to be healed. Because actually, if you're able to not resist anymore what's happening, you're changing the information. Okay. So I'm so sorry about the translator. Do you have other questions? It could be related with what we have done together the last few days, but it could be also related with what you experienced during this week.
We were talking about polyphasic sleep.
Yes.
And you told me about some details. Can you go more deeply into that? What kind of music do you use, and how is that whole process going? Because it's, you said it's an important part of energy management.
Yes, the music I'm really amazing, because you don't have to watch the clock. When this is the time, in 1 minute you can fall asleep. You feel you're losing some muscle tonus, you feel much less present, and in 1 minute afterwards you're programmed to sleep. So it's really important to know when it's your period, because the body will be more and more tuned to the timing when there is less and less sleep. Okay. If we speak about the pranic state, usually there is a decrease in need of sleep, and it's more and more easier actually to be polyphasic less we are eating. And for example, I talked the last year with Dominique Varga. She's from Belgium, and she's sleeping just a bit, a few hours per night, and that's enough. And she hasn't learned about polyphasic sleep. Just naturally, she wakes up when the body needs to wake up. So more we are in tune with what's happening in our physical body, emotional body, more there is this balance. Okay, you may be interested about the polyphasic sleep. Go on the internet, check a bit of that. But if you really want to make the transition, maybe you can come also to Charme. I'm giving courses about that. This is called the Dream Walker. And this is 3 days and a half. The idea is really to create this pattern. Of course, in just 3 days, it's hard to stabilize the process. So it would be better than the person has a few days afterwards of not work or not hard sport, something like that. Because usually there is 4 or 5 days, which is the transition, but there is another kind of transition which is taking maybe 3-4 weeks to really stabilize. Because the first 3 days it will be really hard. You will have problems to count your fingers, and when you sit somewhere, you're starting just to yawn, and you will be even fall asleep. So you have to be really vigilant the first 4 days. But then you reach somehow the plateau of 80%. So during these 4 or 5 days, you are maybe efficient at 40, 50%. And then you're increasing to 80 or 90%. But after 1 month, 1 month and a half, actually you're increasing to much more than 100%. It could be 120, I don't know. But on the mental level, actually, it's like with the computer, we're just moving all the information from the short period of time to the long term. So all the information that we needed to activate in order to be efficient for the work or for our activities, they are there much more stronger at the end of the day. On the emotional level, also the stress is completely reduced to zero. It's like you're just waking up after a full night. So you're just restarting. And if there is some stress at work, for example, if you're able to take the nap, you're just cutting the heavy pressure on the emotional level by 2. 20 minutes, a power nap, it's enough to fill again the first battery. But the other one, it takes much more time and especially need of deep sleep. So if you're always already activating the first battery, then there is not a big trouble. So you will always have enough energy. Polyphasic sleep was really interesting for me during my study because I needed a bit more time, and I needed also a way to cope with a lot of information to really store in the hard drive of my computer. And I was really surprised to see what's happening with the Lucid Dreams. That was, I would say, the cherry on the pie afterwards. And then I used the Polyphasic Sleep to access even more easier with this dream state. Yeah.
Can you tell more about that?
The dream state. Yeah.
How to use polyphasic?
Okay. Yeah, sounds good. Okay, just by being awake, then 1 minute afterwards you're dreaming, you make the connection with the dreams much more easier. And when you're waking up, just the last few seconds, you were also dreaming. And this short connection is helping you actually to bring this, I would say, this suggestibility to program what's happening within the dream. We call this hypnagogic state, where there is a halfway there and a halfway back, or halfway in the dream, or halfway here present. And just by having these small windows or suggestibility, you can really program yourself to learn about the dreams, to remember the dreams, to work within the dreams, to do whatever you need to do or to explore in the dream. I read about an article about that. Some people, they just put some audio, I don't know, some specific language audio, and when you're falling asleep, they're just hoping they will learn something. Actually, what's happening, it's just also creating some stress, some expectations, and the physical body is not able to go in co-sleep. So that would be interesting during the dream state, yes, but not for the rest of the night. So it could be interesting maybe to set the intents. Actually, we're accessing to our whole memory when we are in the dream state. So the idea is maybe to learn your language, and then within this dream state, to set the intents, and maybe to speak also in this language within the dream state. Actually, when I was starting to learn a bit Italian, it was a long time ago, so parlo un poco italiano. Actually, I had these dreams because it was for the army. In Switzerland, we need to go in the army, and I had to take the train and to cross all Switzerland to go back in the Ticino, in the Italian part. And it was like 6-7 hours with the train. And I had time to nap. And I wanted actually to go in the Ticino, in the Tessin part. It was also to learn Italian. But unfortunately, over there, all the sergeant, the officer, all these people were Swiss German people. So I couldn't have any occasion to learn Italian, but I was a bit frustrated. So during my time in the train, I was learning a bit Italian. And during the naps, actually, I was dreaming about speaking Italian. And I'm sure it's helping a lot. It's like when we're learning another language. After a while, we think from the language. We're not translating in our mind with the mother language. And this is the same with the dreams. So you can really trigger, set the intents, and see what's happening. Yeah. Yep. Sorry, Jonah. Yep, for you.
How do we deal with nightmares?
Okay. I would say regarding nightmares or dreams, the first step is to know if it's coming from your subconscious mind, so the part that you need to work on to recognize your own light, or is it something external? Okay, because before I just said that I met some presence outside. It could be really amazing teachers full of compassion, but it could be also some disturbing energies, what we call entities. So the first step is to recognize if it's some emotion belonging to you. So if your subconscious mind is trying to I would say attract your attention to one specific point, or if it's something external. If you have the impression this is something external, what you can do is also cleanse a bit the bedroom energetically. Just visualize the place, sending a lot of love. You can also use sage or music, just singing. Just send a lot of love in this place. And when you're falling asleep, you can really visualize a bubble of light. This will really make your astral body and your physical body protected during the night. Because what's happening also, it's when you're traveling, sometimes there is some aggression directly in the physical body. It's because our consciousness is not there with the body. It's allowing an open door. So we need to be careful to do both. Actually, more and more I'm aware about the energy, about what's happening in my life. More and more I'm changing some programmation. I would just give an example. If, for example, I've been beaten by a dog when I was really a young boy, it's quite possible that every time I will see a dog, I will be afraid. It means I have the programming within myself that if I see a dog, my life is in danger. Actually, this is maybe what happened 30 years ago, but for the energy work, this is always in the present moment. So if I'm able to say, no, the dog are, friendly animals, then I will change the programmation and I will move to the next step. But more and more we are sensitive about our reaction, about everything, more we need to tune a bit more the programmation. It could be, again, conscious about what's happening, but it could be also unconscious. And I would say the only point here to remember is just to send a lot of love. So if you feel somehow that your coding, your programming is not aligned with the source, just sit in meditation, send love. And after 5 minutes or after 1 hour, it will be gone. Yeah. Okay, Fabio, how much time do you have?
One question. Wait, you have 50 minutes.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you have a girlfriend? No, I'm not hitting on you. Because I was a polyphasic sleeper until a year ago when I met my boyfriend. I just changed everything just to be with him because I'm not able to.
Yeah, this question is quite interesting, and I think there is also some parallel with Breatharian, because some people they don't eat and then they come in contact and they're starting to eat again. Actually, you need to be at a certain point where you don't want to make sacrifice anymore with yourself. I think it's also repeating what I said 10 minutes ago. You need to work on your life, and the other person is just a colleague, another soul who is wishing you the best to move forwards in your own path. And you shouldn't find any conflict with that. If there is any conflict, then you should find an agreement, I would say, that, okay, this is my time, and I can come back in the morning, say hello and whatsoever. And during your night, you can just change room and work on your computer without any sound or whatsoever.
We're living in one space in a camper, so that's not easy.
Okay, then the other option, you have to teach him to be polyphasic. Yeah, that's it. Regarding your first question, I don't know if it's related directly with Breatharian, but maybe too, because actually this experience could be sounds a bit extreme to not eat at all. And if we just look in the society, every social aspect of the society is quite often related with alcohol. And we didn't speak about alcohol during this week, but before to stop with the meat, usually we stop with alcohol. This is really a progress. When we are tuned to our energy, we will not make our body suffer. Until a certain point where we can, I would say, work directly on the matter and not be affected with it. But along this path, we will just stop that. So all the social aspects are related with the food, with the drinks, maybe late nights, a lot of music and really loud and everything. And then after a while, you just realize, yeah, but I'm feeling not myself within this space, within this environment. And then you choose differently. Okay, I'm first of all, I would say I'm not an expert in what is a couple relationship. I had, I would say, a life a bit particular. Okay, when I was younger, I was daydreaming a lot, and that's why I moved also to mediumship, because I was with one foot on the other side too. And you know, when you trying to match the group, okay, there is the. Oh, sorry, this is maybe a bit aggressive comparison, but it's like that. There is the park with all the sheep. I don't mean anything bad about that, but the sheep, they would like to be in group, because somehow they have the impression that more there is people doing the same thing, there is safety behind it. And somehow when we are inside this park, we're just waiting the definition of who we are from the society. But one day you will just realize it could be through, I don't know, an accident, through a deep meditation, through a music or whatsoever. You will just try to put one foot out of the park, and you will just realize, oh my gosh, the grass over there is much more green. And then there is this, I would say, this appetite to find your light. And then I would say the washing machine is starting, because you want to get back to your light, and you dive deeper and deeper into yourself. And it's not easy to dive into every traumatic event that we experience, but you know within yourself that it's worth it, because you can see more and more this light. And actually there is more and more happiness coming also as, I would say, as a reward on your process. So I tried to escape a bit the question. I hope I did it properly. Do you have other questions? Yeah, actually I have. But the connection I have with this person is not maybe related with the definition you could have with a couple. We are all really independent. And when you are in this state, actually, you make really a big difference between, I would say, the sexual aspect and the affective aspect. Because I would say, like every man, because I can say that I saw some statistics, the men usually are really a slave of their brain, but the two hemispheres are there, because they always having during the whole day a lot of thoughts regarding sexual activities, intercourse. And when I did here my 21-day process, actually one of the first amazing cleansing I had is not to be spammed anymore by these thoughts. I was much more free about just resting and having other ideas. So actually it's working always on the second chakra. This is the energy center, but this is also the sexual chakra. And if you work on your food, you're working on how the energy is entering your body, you're actually working on this sexual aspect. And if you work on the first one, or the food, it will actually help the other one. And okay, I will go a bit more deeper. If you really want to be a Breatharian and you are a man, you have really to change your habits about sexual activities, because the body needs 3 months to restore, to recreate the sperm. Okay, this is costing a lot of energy for the body. Every time there is some intercourse, it's like creating again the whole North America population. This is the amount of spermatozoid created. And there is also zinc inside, and the body needs really 3 months to create that. So before to start to I would say, eat less and work hard on Breatharian, just try to be tantric. Tantric means, okay, you don't care about if it's finishing in the way we used to have intercourse or not. It's just in the present moment. And if you're able to be in this exercise, first of all, you will appreciate much more, and the partner will also appreciate much more, because it's lasting much more time, and you're still sparing your energy. So at the end of the day, everybody is happy. But it needs really some practice to get there. Yeah. Okay, that was not really what I wanted to talk initially. Okay. Do you have other questions? Yes. You're happy with the questions? Okay. Yeah. Your wife too, I guess. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think don't try to bring back actually spirituality to the sexual activity, because in our society, if I have to just name one thought form, one collective thought form, this is not about religions. Okay, thought form is what we're creating with our minds in the energy field. And if several people are thinking the same thing, it's creating this energy. And religions is here for quite a while, and there are a lot of people praying, so they're using also the creativity, but also the crown chakra to create the thoughts. This is quite powerful. This is maybe one of the most powerful. But the one which I think is even bigger, this is related with sexuality. Because we are not free of it. And this is important to recognize that actually on the spiritual level, we don't have any gender. So from the beginning, we are already whole. And because we are experiencing a body, it doesn't mean I need to experience the lack of something or the missing part of. No, I'm already whole. And maybe another partner is here to remind me that I'm whole, because we are all sharing this state. And it's not, okay, I'm missing something, I need to find someone who is preparing me for a few minutes. Okay. Nowadays, the person, usually they're having a beer, they're watching a match on TV, and then they're having sex with the girlfriend. If you're moving into the Pranic State, you're shifting from the conception of the second chakra to already bring some emotion, affection in the relationship, and then you can even go further and connect with on the spiritual level. And it reminds me about the discussion we had, I think 2 days ago, about homosexuality. Actually, it doesn't matter if the other person is also a girl or a man or whatsoever. It's really two souls recognizing their own line and recognizing actually God within the other person. And this is really a spiritual connection. And actually, if there is intercourse or not, or how is it done, this is not really important. This is more this energy exchange, which is the essential part. Yeah. But to access to that, we need really to be in tune with ourselves. This is the first step. I would say, regarding couples, quite often, the 1 + 1 is -2. It's less than 2, because I'm having some holes and I'm looking with a lot of hope that the other person will feel all the missing part. It could be related with my father, with my mother, with whatsoever. And somehow I will deplete the energy of the other person. So I will crave for something, and it's the same on the other side. The other person will also pH some resource, some energy resource for me. But if we are already independent, then it's a different story. There is 1 + 1, which is more than 2, because there is some synergy. If I need to learn something about one specific chakra, one specific energy experience, just by being in a state of not judgments, or I would say unconditional love, it's enough to learn from the energetic presence of the other person. So this is really the spiritual journey of sexuality. And I was just a bit surprised that during this week, nobody talked about Tantrism, because for me it was one of the hardest steps actually to move forward into this Breatharian state. I was working on my energy management, and I just realized, yeah, but my second chakra is always depleted. What's happening? And then I just had to reconsider everything. Yeah? Okay. Other questions? Other topics? We have 5 minutes more. So I will take this occasion to make a little bit of advert. If you want, I have some cards, so if you're interested on my website, the next few weeks it should be translated everything in English. Right now, the most pages are in French, but the one related with the pranic process is in English. I'm not only giving courses about pranic states, I'm also giving courses about mediumship. So mediumship, this is not only connecting with the deceased people, this is also connecting with the spiritual guides and our higher self. Then the second week is in complete darkness, so it will be 6 days without any sound, without any light. So it will be really an inner journey. And this is really to connect a bit more deeper with the spiritual guides. And the last week, this is what we call the quest vision. This will be a part also in the nature, where you will have to know why you want to be pranic. This is also the period where there is really the transition on the physical aspect, because the idea is to make the transition on the physical body really at the end. Only if the emotional body and the mental body are ready, because we get rid of all the limited belief, and the emotional body is really stable enough. And we have also implemented in our daily life some habits to sustain this vibration. And when all these steps are done, then the last one is a transition on the physical body. Because quite often the people, they may be starting a process, but they are catching between. And then the body starts to be really thin, we're starting to feel weak, we feel some guilt because we're eating again, and there is problems. So the idea is to prepare all the steps and just at the end, the transition. But it's just a formality at the end, because you feel you're ready. And actually, if you want to start again, eating the way you want, this is not a big deal, because all these habits, this energy frequency is there. And for me, this is the main part. This is to access to this pranic consciousness. This is not to have food or not food in our daily life. This is, I would say, a detail. Yeah. Okay. So do you have any last urgent questions? If not, I will close.
Where is this course held?
Yeah, this is in Switzerland. I'm from Switzerland and I'm living in a small village up in the mountains. So it's really silent. There is a lot of mountains. There is a lake nearby, forest nearby. It's really beautiful. So it's 6 days. So it's during the whole week.
Is there a set date?
Yes. Actually, there is to process and every time with the date of the 3 weeks. Yeah. Yeah. Just look if it's matching what you're expecting about this experience. But this is not only about Pranic State. This is really to wake up the energy machine, to wake up the connection with our soul and all the invisible world. So it's the package is a bit bigger, but I will ask a lot from you. This is like 8 hours teachings per day. It will be intense, but yeah, you can always take some break and take it easy. But I will provide enough, I would say, to really make the day really full.